Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Quest for the Best Director podcast. My name is Matthew Moore. Me is a core cinephile, Caleb Ferguson. Caleb, what's going on?
I'm doing astounding today. How are you,
That
Matthew?
I'm good. You, Caleb Schwarzinski, which was like kind of an issue, but I didn't, so I'm really proud of myself for that one. But I'm in a great mood. I've been watching so many movies lately. I've been watching a bunch of like really old samurai movies. It's like
Good
the
choice, good
closest like
choice.
you guys can get to calling me a weeb. So, anyways, speaking of weebs, so transition. Also joining us, who I know bought a driver's manual after watching these movies. Ski, Derek, how you
I
doing?
feel pretty misnomered right now, but otherwise pretty good.
You didn't buy a driver's manual?
No, dude, I already have one, obviously.
Oh, well, I hope you weren't tailgating anybody, Derek.
No, don't worry, I didn't get my ass beat on the side of a road with a gun to my face.
A harsh scene. But yeah, this leads us to our two movies for the week. Um, Zero by Roberto Rossellini and Lost Highway by David Lynch.
Germany,
One movie is
year zero.
Did I not say that?
You're good.
Okay, sorry. One movie is a real part of this Italian neorealism thing. Very gritty, really supposed to encapsulate the emotion of the characters through like very little editing, a very minimalist storyline. It's really supposed to heighten the emotion. One is everything but that. So we really have kind of this philosophical difference to talk about here. So I'm very excited. But yeah, it's Germany Year Zero. It's basically about this family who lives in Germany right after World War II, and they're very poor, and it ends up having the child to kind of family continue on financially. He ends up murdering their sick father. And Lost Highway is a very difficult movie to describe. It's a mystery movie. It's just as much of a mystery for the audience as it is for the characters in the movie, so I think it's best if we kind of just talk about that when we get there. Highway first,
Oh
so we don't
no,
have
let's
to.
do Germany first.
Was
Since
not
I
able.
think talking about the longer
I
one
think
will
Germany
be
is first. Okay.
better towards the end. We won't be tired by the end.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, Germany Year Zero. Okay, Derek. We've watched
Yes.
a few Italian neorealism movies now, right? Common themes in the podcast when it comes to you and Italian neorealism.
Yes.
That you don't like them.
Well, except for
You at least enjoyed this.
children are watching us, and I thought, what was it? Knights of Kabira had good moments, but otherwise, yes, that is true.
Surely you at least enjoyed this movie.
I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
A 6 out.
Yeah,
Oh
I had
no!
actually
It's gonna be one of those podcasts, isn't it?
at first it was a 7 out of 10, but then I was thinking about it and I was like, never mind, 6 out of 10. But what I did enjoy about this movie is that this kind of like really helped me capture what I don't enjoy about most neorealism movies. Like in an abstract generalization, it like okay, so this is I came with two theories on both movies, but the one on this one helps me like better explain what I don't like about neorealism, pretty much.
This is more of a meta theory than
Yes.
maybe your Lost Highway theories are.
So this is gonna be pretty
like
long, but
Mhm.
what I notice is that it's usually always when I say I don't like a neorealism movie is because I say it's like the characters aren't very engaging and stuff like that. This is the similar problem, but it was like, okay, I think I understand now why. Because ultimately, what engages me with characters in like dramatic movies like this with like hardship and whatnot is the actual characterization and like the backstory, how they are acted, how the director portrays them with like interacting with other characters and like how they are treated. But the problem comes when like the actors themselves aren't able to properly engage with each other in those situations. So with neorealism movies, obviously most of the actors are not actors. So their acting skills are not very good. And a lot of the time what I end up having to do is like be like, okay, the shitty things that are happening to them are shitty and that's sad, but ultimately I'm not really engaged with these characters at all because they're not portrayed in an engaging manner. In Germany Year Zero, this is probably where I'm going to start talking good things about it, is that at the very least, towards the end, Edmund has like very more private moments where the interaction between the characters is less important. So seeing like two characters with bad acting or one character with bad acting is not as bad as two or three. So it's much more engaging, and from like less like grating on like my senses basically. And then also there's the fact that the father or whatnot, who's like really sick, is actually pretty good at acting.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that is undeniable.
yeah, he was very talented.
Was quite talented.
So the scenes where he was in were actually pretty engaging and like actually made me feel for these characters like in their situation in a real way, which ultimately is my problem with neorealism. When I was like, okay, the problem that I have with other movies is that those moments don't really exist or don't exist overall, in that there's no actual engagement. So it's just like, okay, so I think it's just the actors maybe, and I was like, okay, maybe it's not just the actors, maybe it's the director, because it seems like philosophically the idea is a more minimalist approach to directing, less editing like you said already, and ultimately that's kind of the point for me with in the scene, like one-on-one scene like with Henning for example in Edmund, is that like, okay, maybe the actors are bad, but the director can do something to make it more interesting to see and get me through the scene and engage with what's happening with these people. But ultimately,
He was a
he
bad
wasn't
actor.
bad. He just wasn't good.
I thought he was quite
But
good.
the problem comes when like, okay, this pedophilia dude is like creeping on Edmund, that's creepy. I was like,
Yes,
okay, that's
for
interesting in and of itself that this is the situation Edmund is in. But the director's not doing anything really to entice me to be like, oh my god, Edmund, I'm so sorry for you. Your situation sucks. It's just like, okay, matter of fact, like, okay, it sucks, but
How about when the pedophile convinces
yeah,
Edmund to murder his father?
yeah,
Surely that incited something.
I was gonna say that, yeah. That's another moment where I was like, okay, this movie has some powerful moments. That's cool. But then ultimately, immediately afterwards, it's just like a scene in the home again where the sister is just like one note back, ragging on him and whatnot, etc., etc. So I was just kind of like, eh. It kind of went from a high to a low immediately, and it just overall just engaged me less than it would before.
Okay. Do you mind
Yeah.
if I kind of respond to this point? I agree with you to an extent, but what I think Rossellini does very strong is he kind of uses this Italian, this, like a neorealist sort of thing in this very interesting way, right? Because I do agree that like some character scenes can kind of be a bit drawn out, right, and a bit like pedantic to watch. Especially this is also most obvious in the scenes with the family, which are almost all character scenes, right? Whether it's the sister and the brother, or the sister and Edmund.
Yeah.
These are especially the sister and brother scenes are a drain.
And it's difficult to sit through that.
Yeah.
And in general, most scenes like that in neorealism films, because it seems like, I don't know, there's nothing engaging going on actually, other than the ideas that they're presented, like the realities of their situation, which
First thing, I think the set is
And
incredibly
like
engaging.
that can only go so far.
Just
After I see it the first time, I'm like,
off the
okay,
bat.
that's cool. And then it's like second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time. I was like, okay, whatever.
Sure, but so I think these scenes are drawn out. But what I think is interesting is how we shoot the scenes outside of the house, right? Well, I do not think these. I think these scenes, until arguably the end, where it's kind of just Edmund,
Hmm.
exploding. But until then, I think these are very engaging because there's really not much dialogue. You're forced to do is like much less. I mean, obviously with the Edmund Henning, there is some dialogue, but I think Henning is a strong enough actor, and the conversation and more like the physical body language, so that kind of keeps you engaged. It almost presents this world outside of the house as this very engaging place to the audience, and thus an engaging place to like our title character Edmund. So then what happens is you kind of sympathize with Edmund. You're like, man, I really do want you to like be out of this family and out into the world, even though they're like right because like, the world is treating him
Hmm.
significantly worse than his family does. These kids are jerks to him. This girl she was make a joke, and obviously Henning is like you know pedophilic, and his friends are pedophilic, and that's all weird and also not completely explained. But but even in that, it's something that's engaging, right? You're kind of wondering what is going on with this Henning guy, because you understand he's pedophilic, and he has all these kids going in and out, but what's going on?
Yeah, like it's
So
never like really like brought up, right? Because like nothing ever really happens. Like he's kind of like a little handsy, but
hmm
like
well, he
nothing
has his
ever like.
friend too, right? He has his friend who's like also very handsy.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I really like that because to me, he has like two or three different encounters when he like goes up to his apartment with like these people in like kind of the lobby area, and he gives the woman some nail polish or something like that, and like they all kind of like say these people's names and like refer to some sort of like narrative action that's like happening, like, oh, did you talk to this guy or something like that. It was kind of just in passing, but like it sort of like refers to all of this narrative stuff that like never actually gets explained or like elaborated upon at all, which I kind of liked because it sort of put you in the shoes of a child and being
hmm
young, and like people just like talk about stuff and you like have no idea what they're talking about, so you're just like, all right, whatever, like we're just going with it. And so it like kind of did a good job of like putting me in Edmund's shoes of just like, I don't know what these people are talking about, I don't know what's going on, I'm just basically getting shuffled along by the tides of history or something.
Totally does, and for that same reason, it makes this outside world more engaging. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
father, obviously at this point you're like Edmund, don't. You know what I mean? But then he kills him, and he goes to the outside world, and Henning has the same reactions we do because in this moment where he kills his father, we're like, outside world is wrong. This family is like a good spot for you. Please, everything's starting to turn around with his brother and stuff, and you're just like Edmund, please stop. And you instantly realize it's a mistake and kind of world, and that's what I thought was super strong about how he kind of handles this neorealistic aspect.
The problem for me, it comes from that
I
it's kind of like it has those moments are good, but the in between is the problem. And it's like overall, ultimately, the moments that are high just are kind of just like less engaging for it. If I was engaged more fully all the way through and was in that moment, like with him killing his father, I would have been definitely been like, oh fuck, Edmund, why are you doing all that stuff? But ultimately, I'd spent like most of the movie already being kind of like at times being like, "Oh dang, that sucks," and like almost fully engaged, but then immediately after not fully engaged and like negatively engaged.
I
Sure,
also
but what about
like
these? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that like kind of like coming back to what you were talking to earlier, Derek, about uh like the group scenes like being particularly bad. Like I specifically noticed that because like normally like I'm not like too bothered by the Italian neorealist. The actors like
Bad
aren't like
acting. Yeah.
necessarily stellar. Like I hesitate to say bad acting, but like not like stellar acting. But in these scenes where like the family is like sitting around the table or talking and stuff, it like actually was like really bad. Like the actual like motion of like or like the logic of like where people are standing just like doesn't make any sense. Like it comes off like completely non-realistically, and it's like they'll
Yeah,
just be like standing in
yeah,
this like weird circle in this like weird side of the room, and then like having a conversation, and like they'll all just like stop talking, but then like either immediately like start moving away, or like just kind of stand there awkwardly, or like it's hard to exactly like put my finger on why, because it's like some sort of subtle body language thing we all just like do naturally, but it just
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
feel
okay.
natural or right.
I was gonna use that as like an example of why I don't really like this genre, but like it seems like because I'm gonna leave it to like the actors not being really actors. It's like the director's like, okay, I need you to display this emotion or do this thing, and they do that exactly like a robot, but they don't actually like engage that emotion or that action. They don't take on the
Yeah.
character in any way and become that person in any meaningful way that is actually engaging to see. It's like when you're in class in like ninth grade, being told to read the part of Romeo. Like, okay, read the part, Jason, of Romeo, and Belle will read Juliet in the scene. Okay, go ahead. Like,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I guess like to what I'm saying though, I think that's okay because well, in these family scenes, which are supposed to feel like a drag anyways, I almost feel like it's an intentional decision because in these family scenes, yeah, they're a drag, but Edmund's supposed to be like so tired of the home, and it's supposed to be this place where like there's no progress, and Edmund's really the only one getting work done, right? Yes, and like the natural progression should be to
Yeah.
leave the home, but then obviously we realize like how backwards that is itself.
well, the problem isn't that the home is portrayed as a drag. The problem is that it's portrayed as a drag poorly.
Right,
Drag
you're
to
saying it's a
watch, not
drag,
drag for Edmund personally.
but it is.
It
It's
might
both.
be.
It's both a drag to watch, and for that reason, we can empathize with Edmund that it
I
is a
wouldn't go so
drag to
far
live
that
in.
I would empathize with Edmund as a like said. That would require me to engage with the character in a meaningful way where I'm like actually invested in them as a person. But as I said, the actors in I'm gonna extend this to like the overall genre, but I think there's definitely highlights like Knights of Cabiria and Children Are Watching Us that we've seen already, where that's not true. So obviously there's exceptions, but in this case, I'd say
Also,
the lack of engagement does not, or it would require engagement to allow me to empathize with these characters. And obviously, they're not engaged with the characters themselves in a meaningful way, and therefore I can't engage with them as well.
I do feel like the actual narrative structure, or like the plot of this movie, is like super compelling though. Like even if it's not being portrayed amazingly by the actors and actresses, like the whole idea of like an ex-Nazi like hiding out in your house, and he's like your brother, and like you're sort of like sympathizing with
Yeah,
it even though he's like
definitely.
literally a Nazi. And then like the girl, like the whole like plot line, I guess you could say, of her like going out and like meeting men and like bumming cigarettes off of them, but then just like keeping them so she can trade and sell them later, or smoke them later and like share them around the house, is like it's so like grimy, but like so like relatable, I guess, and realistic. And like I don't know, you really feel for these people, except for the like the boss of the house. That guy was an asshole.
the
Yeah,
worst, huh?
definitely the ideas are there.
You keep saying about okay, you're talking about the execution, but like in this very like minimalist way. I feel
I
like you're not
did just
responding to the
now
points I'm
when you
making
said
about it.
empathizing with
Like,
Edmund. I just responded to that.
sure, but I feel like what you're saying that the only bad parts of these like drags for you are like these
No, I said
interactions between the
I'm
characters, but I
saying
don't
pretty
think
much like
you have too much
most
reason.
of the movie. That's what was my point. Okay, I'll give another example that's not in between characters, but
Sure.
let's see. Oh, okay. Well, immediately after the beginning scene, we see like Edmund being thrown out of working or whatnot. But we see. Okay, never mind. That's another scene with characters. All right, what's another one without characters? Well, that's the problem. I think is that in between, like the whole movie is built around the interactions between characters. Like he goes from working around with people to the immediately his house where we see the shitty, acting and so on. Then he goes, walks around for a while trying to get the selling stuff on black market, which is also with characters and also has the problem of being of lack of engagement with. characters, etc. Like I already said.
Okay, perfect. Pause there, pause there, pause there. Because I think we can talk about this point then. That's true. I think maybe this is where like we disagree. Wouldn't say that's an interaction with the character in the traditional sense, in that really interact in the scenes where he's not in the house. Edmund isn't really interacting with any characters in like the traditional sense because there's no really back and forth, right? Because in these scenes, Edmund's in his own world. Like obviously trying to support his family, but that's for Edmund. I mean, yes, he's interacting with like I guess whatever random people, but like in them, just like inherently, we don't really care about them inherently. We really just care about the Edmund of it all, and Edmund only really cares about the Edmund of it all. So that way, when this character interaction for this reason, the
But the
actor
problem
doesn't
is
really
that
matter, right? I
to
mean,
actually be engaged with a character, they had to be developed either through exposition or interaction with other characters through dialogue. They had to be, and as I
sure, and we
said,
get a
the
lot of
problem is
we
my
get both of
problem
that
is
with
that
Edmund.
in those moments of it's not engaging. So all in all, that's just going.
But
My point is
it
that
is
those moments of dialogue.
okay. So, what did you think was not engaging about like
Sorry.
at the black market? Like, what did you think was not
Pretty much
engaging
what
about
I've
that?
already said before, with the actors themselves not being engaged with their characters in a meaningful way, etc., etc. So it'd just be a rehash to say that. But also, I'd say the cinematography didn't really strike me as anything special in that moment. So I was also not engaged with that.
Caleb, what are your thoughts on these like outside of the family scenes?
I do think that I mean, they allow us to see like a good bit of Edmund's personality. Like, I disagree that we don't get to like get Edmund developed because I think like he ends up being like a pretty endearing character, and you start to care for him a lot. Even though like he's not like that much of an active participant in things, primarily because like they sort of like give him like mannerisms and like
Hmm.
subtle like personality traits that he like always just like tells the truth and like doesn't lie, and he's like very like
Hmm.
open with his emotions, and like he just goes up to the Mr. Hindley or whatever, like the pedophile guy, and is like, and here's the problem with my brother, he's an ex-Nazi and he's hiding out in my house, and just like just telling all this stuff, and like just being like really like honest, but then at the same time he's also like really cunning, and like really like you know hustling basically.
Yeah, he's like an opportunist.
Yeah, but it's like so it's like both of those things. Like he's like sly and cunning, but he's also like extremely honest. And so I don't know, like he's able to be developed in an interesting enough way that like you come to care for him, which is definitely unlike some other neorealist movies involving young children that have bad things happen to
Yeah,
them.
No, it wasn't near realist for the
I'd
record. That was
say
just
I was more engaged by the end with Edmund. I wouldn't say he's not developed at all. I guess that would be definitely an unfair thing to say. But my point is that less that he's not entirely developed, but that he's not developed entirely in an engaging way.
Yeah, I mean that's like a fair opinion, I guess. I don't know.
I guess I just agree. I think something that's strong, but I think it is like I mean the cinematography, but at least like the mise en scène of it, were just
Hmm.
small in this world, right? What's the world itself, which this time is it's not a place supposed to be this big bustling city. It shouldn't be a place that like makes no sense, you know what I mean? But it does. Maybe I guess the smallness of it does suppress. But Edmund feels small in this, suppressive small place. And it's very interesting, like visual dynamic. There's never a scene of Big Edmund. It's always small, and he's literally getting tossed around by this man who's trying to take the scale from him, right? And or when he's running with these boys, and he's just so caught up in the wind of it, he doesn't realize that he has no idea where he is. He's got to find somewhere to sleep because it's late at night. I don't realize it either because in these moments, I feel like you're caught up with Edmund, and it's not until someone points out, like Edmund, or Edmund points out, really, hey, I have to go to sleep. And they're like, sorry. Like, oh shit, he does have to go to sleep.
Yeah. I really like the sort of like thematic content and like political commentary of this movie of like that this like environment is like literally like destroying its own future, like and like corrupting children who are like literally going to be their, successors, and how like fascism is basically this like corrupting influence on children.
Yeah, he makes
Pretty interesting
the
stuff.
or the still Nazi dude Henning be a total creep and pedophile. So definitely a thematic
Hmm.
choice.
Yeah, it's like taking the the purity and the wholesomeness of like Germany or the society or whatever, and it's like just like corrupting the future basically, and then it ends up killing it, of course, in the end. So pretty interesting.
The craziest part is like, yes, it is fascism corrupting it, right? These Nazis are corrupting it, but then it's also like everyone who's not involved in the fascist regime, right? Like the family be like the word be like more like left leaning, right? But even they're like very suppressive to Edmund in their own ways.
But they're not corruptive or corrupting. Like
I
in fact,
guess
they
not, but
like
their actions
they
are.
like explicitly tell him like don't go outside because it's like corrupting out there, and they literally use the word corruption. Like you're going out there and you're like trying to hang out with all these bad kids, and it's like really bad for you. So just stay in here with us. And like yeah, it's like hard times, but like you don't have to go that far. Which is like literally like how fascism came to be, right? It was like because times were like really hard in Germany, and then fascism sort of like provided this, you know,
Escape, yeah.
escape or convenient solution. Just how like this like Hindley guy or whatever his name is like sort of like this like convenient solution to like all the drama at home. He can just like go talk to this guy and like vent about his problems or whatever,
Sure, but I guess
as
like
opposed.
oh,
I was gonna say, as opposed to like just like sticking it out at home and dealing with the problems and solving them the proper way.
sure, but for children, like how does a child deal with the problem the proper way? And because it's so suppressive, you know.
Mm. Well, yeah,
That's
I
I
mean, I
think
don't know. I think that's the point, though, right? Is like he still represents a child, so like he's been it's like the forces are acting upon him, right? Like he can't be held culpable necessarily for what he's done because he's a child, but like this is like translate in like real world. This is like the children of Germany, right? Their like future has been tainted and corrupted, and they end up like just as Edmund dies, like they're basically sacrificing Germany's future for this like I don't know
yeah.
fascist corruption or whatever.
I guess my point is I think that you also like understand why it came to be, right? Like why people take these outs
Oh
because
yeah, yeah, certainly, yeah.
their choice. And I also think another part of it is counting this children like adults thing. It's just inherently ruin things for like the youth, right?
I don't think it's true though that he doesn't have a choice. Like he definitely does
But
have a choice.
does
Or there's like at
Sure,
least like I mean obviously he's a child so he can't be held responsible necessarily, but the point is that there is a choice there, right? Like
the choice, like I understand the choice is there, but it's kind of between two pretty terrible choices.
well yeah, but
Stay at
one's
home.
honest, but one's like the choice of like honesty and like dealing with problems the proper way, and one is like
The other,
trying to get out of it the easy way.
how would he ever properly deal with these problems?
Well, like for example, his like the proper response is represented by like this whole redemptive thing of like uh what's his name, Heinz, going to turn himself in, and like he's basically forgiven or he like gets out of being arrested or whatever, but the point is like nothing bad happens, and he presumably is able to get a ration card, and then his father goes to the hospital because they have some kind people, and it's basically like their family is like redeemed like through their own uh atonement basically in the case of the Nazi, right? Because he sort of like atones for his crimes symbolically at least,
Okay.
by going to like register and join society. And his father is saved essentially by like kindness on behalf of the doctor who like gets him in to get him better nourishment, right? So like if he hadn't killed his father, like their family would be doing okay, right? Because the dad's not sick any longer. So he could
Uh,
I mean, he
yeah.
literally says he's like, "Oh, I'm way better." Like he's still old, but he's not sick
But then
anymore.
he's
So it's
like,
like,
but also, I kind of wish I could just be at this hospital all day, so I'll like come back and be sick again.
well, yes, but the brother has now registered, so he has a ration card now. So they're no longer having to split their food so many ways. So it's like things aren't great still. Like things definitely suck, but things are like looking up at least a little bit. Until of course he kills the father and then himself because of this like corrupting influence. So it's like those are your two options, right? You have the side of like atonement and like kindness, and then the other side is like this like savagery or like destroying the weak, which is represented by fascism. And then we're shown the consequence of taking that path, which is that you end up just like losing. When you lose the things that matter to you, you end up losing yourself.
Sure.
So I have a question. Why does Edmund jump off as finally after his sister calls out to him? Yeah, when before it seemed like he was struggling with the choice.
That's interesting. I don't know. Well, it's definitely foreshadowed, right? Because he has that toy gun and like he points it
Yeah,
at his
that's
head.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so he definitely was like in a pretty dark place for a while. And I mean, why it specifically happens, like when his sister starts to call to him, I couldn't say, but it could just be that it like enhances the sort of aesthetic visual element of it of like Edmund, Edmund, like they're calling out to him, like trying to get him to return to
Uh
like
huh.
family life and comfort and home, but he's like kind of on this like dark path of like destroying weakness. And you can think about it too. I'm not maybe this is reaching, but I think like he's taught to like destroy weakness in his father, but then he himself is also weak and is rejected by his family. Somewhat is rejected by Hindley, is rejected by the other kids who are a bit older than him. So he's also like a nothing. He's also a weak person, and therefore
Hmm.
he destroys himself.
I saw it as a kind of couple ways as well, where it's like saw it as just what he's as I guess you kill yourself. Is this worth it, right? Like, is the other option really that bad? Sure, that's what anyone can think at that moment.
Mhm.
It's a calls him. He's like, yeah, no, it really is just that bad. This is my other option, and I can't do that. But the other aspect of it to me was just Edmund walking this street. I get this feeling of like a new Hitler. And he's this very sinister person, right? Who can like almost be so lovable, but manipulative. As we said, he's like comes off so honest, but really he's so deceptive and so capable of doing these like very terrible things. It almost feels like he's eliminating this evil. I'm not exactly sure his sister factors into that, but maybe I don't know. To me, it's like Edmund was stopping something by killing himself, stopping this evil from growing. Because as someone walked through the streets, I'm like, wow, this is the rise of power of Edmund. You know what I mean?
Oh
Look
yeah, I
what Germany's
see.
created as it's destroyed something new, but then immediately he kills himself.
Oh, I see.
I
That's
don't know what sister
interesting.
factors into that.
Yeah, I thought just like on the whole topic of like Hitler, that whole scene where they're like listening to the Hitler speech on
So
uh
strong.
on the record player, and then it just like pans over the rubble of the city as he's like talking about like I'm gonna bring glory to the German people and all this stuff. It's like, man, that's pretty definitely captures the theme of like you think
Hmm.
it's gonna bring glory to your people, but really it's just gonna bring shame and destruction.
Your thoughts on the movie?
I like the length.
Yeah.
It like didn't go
Yeah.
on for too long, which was good.
Yeah.
It was like exactly as long
I
as
could
it
deal
needed
with
to
a little
be.
shorter, but yeah, I like the length.
It was an hour and 12 minutes, Derek. Come on. It's any
I'd
shorter.
be
It's like a
fine with
TV show
that.
episode. There, David Lynch has literally released episodes of television longer than this movie.
Oh, my other thing is that I had difficulty following some of the German dudes. I was like, everyone other than like Edmund and the creep dude and the father, because obviously he was always just in the bed. I was like, who's this? Who's this dude? Oh, who's this person? Oh,
That's only
Yeah.
really like one other German guy you have to follow. Just a brother.
just
Who else
the
is there?
other people that they mentioned, like, go see this dude. Go see this dude. Like, okay, okay. It's like, it was
I think it's okay though, because like kind of like how I mentioned before, it like has that it puts you in the place of being a kid, and like I don't know who these people are. I'm just
yeah.
doing what I'm told. Who are
It
these
definitely
people?
wasn't
I
a
don't know.
big
I'm
deal
just doing what I have.
thematically. It was just kind of like, eventually I was just like, oh, I guess it doesn't really matter, whatever. But it was like at the start, I was like, yeah, I can't follow who's who.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really get that. I feel like it was like I don't know. I guess the only person and like is also the evil owner of the land of the place they lived in. The fat guy, pretty obvious. I got him and the dad
Yeah, I was
tiny
like,
bit
which one's the dad? Which one's the mom? Which one's the
much.
sister? Okay, who's this other person that he just met? And so on. It was just,
And it was that what confused me. Like, yeah, who is this one girl who like they all like? Yeah, some of that stuff was weird. But I thought the guys
I
were
used
pretty
dude,
easy. I don't know.
pretty unisexually, but I guess it should have said person.
Sure. Not the most
Oh
important
yeah, it
conversation
was
though. No
the
offense, Derek,
final point
but
I had that I wrote down.
too much exciting talk. Like, no, but I recognize this, and this character. And you'll be like, but I recognize. Yeah, it's not exactly engaging to the all our
Yes.
thousands of viewers at home. Okay, what was the last viewer count? So it
Wait,
was
what
like in
did
the
you say?
six digits, right? You said it was in
Oh,
the six digits.
what's in the six digits?
Our last viewer count on YouTube.
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's very
Thanks,
up to
Caleb.
date.
Really sold that one. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're ready to talk about.
Oh, by six digits you mean the digit six, right?
Exactly. Did it?
All right, Lost Highway. Bam.
How do you even
Transition.
describe this movie? There's no great transition to Lost Highway because Lost Highway isn't even like transition into itself. You know, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's an infinity
Yeah. It's
symbol, dude. Dude,
I
I
figured
have
this
a
one out.
very, I think, well, it's not super solid because there's a little bit weak points, but I have a pretty solid theory, I think.
Let's
Okay,
hear
well,
it.
really quick before you get into that, I'll do my bit of introduction to Lost Highway. Okay, Derek's theory, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll have lots to talk about with that. To me, actually, it's a very funny experience in this movie because we watched Elephant Man first, right? And before this, out of Lynch movies, I had seen Twin Peaks, most Twin Peaks, and I had seen Blue Velvet. And those movies, Blue Velvet's more simple to follow than Twin Peaks, but they're both very bizarre movies. But we watched Elephant Man for the podcast. Like, man, his depth, he could really do a straight up movie. And I was so excited going to Lost Highway because I figured, I don't know, something from the sound of it. Maybe if I was like another one of his more straight up movies. And boy, was I wrong. It lends itself to convoluted theories that may have some accuracy. Like I'm sure the one Derek's about to give. So Derek, hit us with it.
Well, this is gonna probably take a little bit, and it's gonna be a little circuitous. But basically, like the idea is that like Fred is like the main identity, and Pete is a separate identity that he disassociates to reject the idea that his wife is cheating on him and is in an extramarital affair with what's his name, Laurent, right? And that's like the first. That's the first key. Okay,
So
there's another
she's
key though. The key is that so Pete is the identity that rejects that, or is his attempt to reject that she is cheating on him as a porn actress as well. So Alice is then the identity that he makes up to represent the porn actress, and Renee to keep separate from Renee, his loyal wife. Then what comes in is that before then, though, technically after as well, the mystery man is like the dark emotions and the distrust and the idea that Renee and Alice are the same person, and Renee is disloyal and all that. So the mystery man is basically, I'm going to call darkness, right? Because it's easier that way. That's why he's a friend of Dick, who is a member of the Dark, as he's shown being, violent, being a rapist, all these dark things. That's why he's a friend of Dick, because Dick is basically a human darkness in this movie.
Wait. Dick is the guy with
Dick
the
Laurent.
really skeevy looking face, right?
Mr. Eddie, yeah.
Mr. Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah, Dick Laurent is Mr. Eddie.
No.
Yes.
I'm thinking of
Andy's
Andy.
just
I'm
a
thinking of
porn
Andy.
actor.
Andy. Can we call him Mr. Eddie though? Because I'm gonna get confused.
Alright, we can call him Mr. Eddie. I'll try and
Eddie.
remember to call him Mr. Eddie. Alright, so Mr. Eddie is...
Okay, so when is he a rapist?
Okay.
Sorry, maybe I missed that,
We
or
see
I'm
that
forgetting.
when Alice, in quotations, talks to Peter about how she got into the porn business, which is when she was going to go talk to a guy about a job. She walks into the house, is then forced into a room at gunpoint, and forced to strip and then have sex with Mr. Eddie.
That is a little interpretation.
She strips and then gets on his lap naked. Sure. So and with the gun at her head. So I assume that's basically sexual abuse.
What happened? Well, I think what actually happened.
I don't think this is.
Obviously, there's a lot of literal figurative.
But this is still seen from the eyes of Peter, because this is that's what I was about to get to that. This is important because Peter is being told this. Peter is still the rejection of this idea. That's why immediately after we see the photo of Renee and Alice in the same picture with Andy, the porn actor guy, and Mr. Eddie. Right there. Okay, the image is important because in the image is both of them together, and then Peter, the guy who's rejecting this idea that they're the same person, asks, is this both of you? And then Alice lies and says that, no, I am just this one. So Peter's still imagining himself like the dichotomy of these personalities. That's why it's important later when the mystery man says to Peter, actually this is like skipping a lot ahead, but when they're at Alice takes him to the cabin and he says, mystery man tells Peter, he says like, if she told you she was Alice, she was lying. So the idea that she's both a different person from Renee is a lie. They're the same person. That's why we see Peter become Fred. Because now he's beginning to realize that these are the same people. That's why before then, Alice had gone into the cabin, which, cabin, I forgot to set this up, but cabin is Fred's mind. So the ideas that go into the cabin, yeah. Okay, so the image, there, I'm going to get to how this is the mind, but the images that go into, or the ideas that go into his mind, or the cabin, are him accepting those things. But before then, we see earlier, when he's morphing into Peter, the reconstruction of the cabin from an exploded state, which is him, tangling with the idea that his wife is cheating on him. And he's reconstructing it into Peter, and morphing into Peter, to come up with the kind of idea that Alice is not Renee. So that's why he's a disassociated state. That's why he doesn't remember anything. That because his cabin is empty. And then once Alice goes into the cabin, and the mystery man tells him the truth, he becomes Fred again, and the cabin reconstructs again.
Yeah, so we never see the cabin explode. We actually never see it explode, right?
Yeah,
we only ever see it explode.
The action of reconstruction, because already Fred, by becoming these new identities, is going through these truths is exploding outwards. That's why the morphing is exploded state. That's another like a kind of side theory. When you
Or couldn't you say
Okay,
that
so I
like
think
the explosion in reverse is like the reconstruction or like the synthesis of these two dissociated identities, and like by them like anti-exploding, they come back together and
well,
form
it
like
happens
one whole
twice.
person again?
One when they're separating, one when they're coming together. So I think it's just easier to call it reconstructing, but you could also but
I see.
so it's kind of important that that the mind is the cabin. I just call it the mind, but you could call it pretty much anything. You could call it his subconscious if you wanted. But so Fred is then completed and with this truth that his wife is the same person as Alice. That's why he's no longer Pete. And then what starts this all, the idea. Okay, so what happens is, why does Fred begin this like cycle? Well, it starts with Dick Laurent is dead, right? Which is what Fred himself tells himself. But they're different selves because one is reconstructed, one is not. So the cycle will have to continue because he still has not have that realization that they're the same person and accepted that.
But wait, the person that goes on the speaker and says Dick Laurent is dead, isn't that like person that says that?
Yeah,
Isn't it
it's Fred.
Fred?
Fred
It's
is
not
the
Pete, right?
Fred. This is like Fred 2. I call it. I'm just gonna call it Fred version 2. So Fred version 2 has already accepted that and acted upon it, and has become, the reconstructed Fred 2. Fred 1 though has not.
I see.
So the idea of Dick
I
Laurent
get it.
being dead would require that action had been taken to change the situation for him. That his wife is a cheater would have been like dealt with. And having that idea in his head causes him to suffer, dark emotions and distrust. That's why the cameras the camera videotapes begin happening because he hasn't.
Wait. So you're saying that Dick Laurent, or him being told Dick Laurent is dead, starts the suspicion that his wife is cheating on
Yes,
him? He didn't know
that's
it already?
part. That might be wrong, but I think that's true because he is, or he's how he said. Let me. I have the quote here somewhere. Um, he he likes to remember things, or I'm just gonna generalize it, but he likes to remember things as he remembers them, not as they are. So the cameras and the videotapes will always show things as they are. That's why it's important that he's getting these videotapes
Yeah.
from the mystery man, the dark emotions. This is his, or I think what this is that like the mystery man is like the darkness subconscious. So this is his subconscious way of trying to confront the truth, like coming to him, like giving him the videotapes and saying, "This is the reality of your situation. Your marriage is a lie. You have to confront this truth." And his rejection of it is to dismember his wife, take her apart, and whatnot.
So that
I,
actually happened
I,
then?
I don't think so.
Like
I
he
think
actually killed his
because it
wife?
happens
Because that's
within
what
the
I figured out.
videotape. I think it does, but I it may have
happened
happened
within a
within a dream.
dream or
Yeah,
something.
I don't know. It might have been a second. It may have been a second level
I
where
don't
the
know.
dream was of the videotape, because I think he was hallucinating that, like how he hallucinated his wife's face being the
No, it is
Is
a
it
tape.
tape?
It
Okay.
is a tape.
All right, then I think it was in fact true then, but I am not 100. I'm not 100% on that. That's
Okay.
definitely something this theory fails at.
Really quick, I just want to at least get some of the core. So one part I don't understand is, see, Alice is not like. Why does he see her as Why does she have to be with? So basically, he doesn't want his wife to cheat on her, so he sees her, him who is like the object of the cheating, not the, I
Yeah.
guess, the one being cheated on. Okay. Now there's one a couple of
Mhm.
scenes I want to bring up here. So who is, well, one character, I guess. Who is Andy,
Andy is.
and where does he fit into all of this?
That's kind of like really
And
weird because Renee himself or herself tells straight up
it's
that
really weird.
Andy got her a job to her husband, who's already distrusting her. So that was crazy. That was definitely a power move on her part. But yeah, Andy is got her a job as a porn actor. So he's the one that got her the job that got her raped. In like not rape, but like into the whole affair.
Yeah, because I think my clarification here, and like the reason why I guess I didn't consider her to be raped, is because I think that the
Yeah,
rape
it's
scene is like his
justification.
sort of like almost, yeah, exactly, right, like it's this whole like idea that like no, it couldn't have been her
Yeah,
intent to do
yeah.
that, she had to have been forced into it, right, like
Because that was
yeah, you get me.
Pete.
And
That was
I think I
because
agree with that
the
because that's why
Pete
when
identity was still in play. He was still attempting to reject that. That's why you see the picture afterwards, and immediately at
Exactly,
the end you see the
yeah.
picture with just Renee in it.
yeah,
Hmm.
and that's also why like when he asks her, like, wait, so why'd you like stay with these guys? And it all
Yes,
gets like all
yeah, yeah,
fuzzy
yeah.
and stuff, and we like cut to something
Wait,
because
when does
like
it get fuzzy? I kind of see what you said.
I think it gets fuzzy when he after she tells him the story of
Yeah.
like how she met Eddie, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Eddie. He's like, wait, but why did you do that? Like why would you stay with these guys afterwards?
Hmm.
Yeah, it cuts right away or something. It gets very
Yeah.
fuzzy. It's like a very quick transition.
Ah, I see.
Sense, and he has to like just bypass it.
Yeah, it's
A
almost like when
couple,
you have like a dream and like not to interrupt you, but just like interject. When you have like a dream, and like something like doesn't make sense, it's almost like your brain just kind of glosses over it.
yeah,
It's kind of like the
exactly.
Yeah.
same thing.
Also, I think I'm not 100% about this, but I think my theory on the mystery man at least is kind of confirmed by the dad, Pete's dad, saying he's never seen the mystery man before in his life. So that's kind of like a nod that he's never had those dark feelings of distrust and anger at his wife. Yeah,
Yeah, because they have like a really good marriage, or like it
yeah.
seems to be
So I
like pretty
think
idyllic.
that at least will carry through.
So what's happening at this
Which
party
part?
then?
Which one?
Where I guess we initially see the
Oh,
mystery man.
I think that one's important because um that's like a really big power move, and also that's where we see the mystery man face to face for the first time, and he's introduced as
Sure.
Dick Laurent's friend,
Yes.
and Dick Laurent is dead. Why is the mystery man there if he's Dick Laurent's friend, and why is Fred there if he's Dick Laurent is dead? And that's like,
Is Fred Dick Ron's friend? I guess he is because Mr. Eddie
yeah, or
goes to
yeah.
the car shop he works at or whatever.
So it's kind of interesting. He has this other identity that he's subconsciously aware of as he's being confronted with his subconscious, the mystery man. And
Is Dick Laurent dead?
then Andy even asks him, "How do you know Dick Laurent is dead?" And then that's when it gets fuzzy because he's still trying to reject the reality of his situation. So that question also approaches him.
What's that reality? Did he kill Dick Laurent?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? It's like he did because like Declan is obviously dead, which is why he's on this voyage in the first place. But he doesn't get killed until much later on because he was told
Yeah,
that in
it's
the
a
first
circle.
place. So it's like a circle, basically.
Wait, but you guys are saying the cabin's
So it's like if it's kind of actually it's an infinity symbol, and like the first reconstruction of the cabin I think is like the point like where he gets set on the path, and this is kind of like the beginning part of the infinity symbol where he's not yet the version 1 has yet to do it, but after that Pete is initiated, and then once he's hit the reconstruction again, he's going back around again with having killed Dick Laurent.
Yeah, the way I saw it
That
described was
works.
a Mobius strip.
But I'm saying like Dick died at the cabin,
Hmm.
which you're saying is his
Yeah.
mind.
So the idea, so
How do we know
so
Dick Laurent died?
he he does know. That's why it's fuzzy when he's faced with the like question of how do you know Dick Laurent is dead. He could have said I was told that, but he doesn't, because if he says that, that means he would he had to face the fact that the person who told him that was himself.
So the reason he
Yeah,
kills Andy is because probably Andy suspects him because he knew Dick Laurent was dead, right? So how would he know? Is that why
Oh
he
no,
kills Andy in that
that's
scene?
Pete that does that. So Pete, uh,
Andy is
yeah, yeah,
dead.
yeah.
We have to
In
be
the
pretty sure
second
that Andy
part,
is dead,
where
right?
Pete, so there's Fred 1, Pete, and then Fred 2. Pete kills Andy. Fred 1 does not. Fred 2 does not. Pete does. Well, technically, Fred 2 and Pete are the same person.
Wait, so I don't understand. So
There's
why
no
does he kill
why
Andy then?
in that scene. That scene, Pete does accidentally. So I would extend because like Pete is like the rejection of reality for Fred 1. That really Fred 1 is that's his anger coming out at the fact that Andy has been banging his wife as a porn actor.
So okay, so it's because obviously no, because I do disagree that it's an accident, sort of, or that there's nothing behind it because to this, why he goes to Andy's house in the first place, right? Because
Yeah,
obviously it's not to take his money and run away with his wife, but he don't run away anywhere. He knows that. Just go to his mind.
but this all that's the thing. That's the important thing though. Is like this is like really happening. Like it's not like as if this is like a dream or something or like some alternate reality. That's like the screwy part, right? Is it's all actually happening because all of the detectives and the police officers and stuff are like they sort of function as like a camera, right? Like they
hmm,
reflect like what is actually happening, right? And then when they go to Andy's house and they see the picture, they only see one, right? So they're basically seeing everything as a reality. And like that's why this movie isn't just as simple as like a psychological dissociation or like seeing this is like a dream or like a fantasy because it's all actually physically happening, right? Like the law takes uh Fred to jail and then he's actually gone, right? Like he's actually physically
yeah,
replaced with a different person's body. Like it's surreal and it doesn't make any sense like logically, but it is actually happening like within the reality of this
yeah,
story, right? So it does make sense that he would have to uh like collect money to go run away with Alice because like he is not Fred that's like a rich dude. He is a high school kid or like a young
Hmm.
25-year-old kid or whatever, right? But that's like where it gets like really hard to like because with like other Lynch movies, it's like there's like a fantasy and there's a reality. But in this like there's they're both reality.
And think that's what's screwing me up too. Yeah, is like, oh my gosh, my thing is not shutting up. I'm sorry. Um, I don't quite understand where I draw the line because it does all have to be reality to some extent.
Yeah.
How does he get out of this jail? I just don't get that.
I think it's supposed to be sort of like like Metamorphosis by Kafka. It's just like it just
yeah.
happens. Like it's supposed to be absurd.
Okay.
I think like timeline, a
What do you
first
guys get from this
timeline
movie?
look at it would be like the Pete happens part kind of happens at the same time as we're being introduced like literally through the movie, and then it's kind of like those two.
Hmm.
So it's not like so much that the cabin like it's the second cabin that happens when like Pete is like getting reconstructed in on his lawn or whatever. So he's experiencing that one, and then Fred is happening. His first cabin is happening like alongside the end of Fred's second or Pete's second reconstruction.
I see. Got all this theory out of the way. So now I'm going to ask a question that I usually start with. What do you guys think of this movie?
It was a fun time.
It was very evocative. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really scary in a way, like emotionally, I guess. Like There's no jump scares, but it's like emotionally horrifying, I guess. Does that make sense? Did you guys get that?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw
Very
it,
like
it compared to like German expressionism, which I thought was like an extremely accurate way to describe that movie.
yeah, it is kind of like Captain of Dr. Caligari-esque, like what's real, what's fake, matter. I think this is a lot more editing effects than German expressionism necessarily is.
Oh wait, I guess you were probably talking about your film German expressionism. I was sort of thinking about like the visual art
Yeah.
expressionism.
Which one was the comparison talking about?
Well, probably originally the film, but I took it as like the visual art of expressionism, which I felt was also accurate. And I'm sure they come from the same term anyway, so.
They do.
But yeah, it's like very like dark and like not quite grounded in reality, but more grounded in emotion. And it's like it's not really like about like the logic of like the reality of what's happening. It's more about like the way that it feels becomes reality, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. That was bad feel movie, but good.
Yeah, it's just really, and it's also so dark. It's like not much physical light in
Oh
the
yeah,
movie. 40 minutes are just so
dude.
like dark
Okay,
and
that was
scary
the
and spooky. And
very interesting decision on his part because he was playing really eerie music when it was just like Renee and Fred together. It was like, why is there this really sinister music going on right now? It's like, this music's kind of making me think that something's going on, and then it's like, there's a scene where they're having sex, and he's experiencing like impotence. It's kind of interesting. If it's a sign of a failing relationship, it's kind of like he's like directorially he's showing the failings of their situation and like his distrust, like very interestingly. And also she jumps when he's like, "What's going on?" It's like such an innocuous question,
mhm.
and yet she's afraid in her own house.
Yeah, like that's all of their conversations are so like tense and awkward for like no
Until
reason.
you realize that
Yeah,
Really.
there's later on that there's some reason behind it, and it's yeah. Oh,
lots of
also
reason it turns out.
talking
Yeah.
about reason why there's tension. That scene where Pete walks into a hallucinated like uh hallway, or I guess not hallucinated because it's the Lost Highway Hotel, because we see later the same hallway, whatnot, etc., etc. But he walks into a room of Alice banging, and it's the same room number, I believe, at the end that we see Mr. Eddie. All right, Mr. Eddie
Yeah,
banging
it
Renee.
is.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of both foreshadowing and like pre-shadowing, I guess. But she's banging a unseen guy at that moment. But we'd only been seeing Alice for a while then. But the whole room's red, vibrant red, and her hair is red, just like Renee's. And she's and
Mhm.
she mockingly like asks him why, like, why are you doing this? Like, why? That's like a question Fred is asking her about her like extramarital affair. Like why? So this isn't her talking to Pete. This is her talking to Fred mockingly, and this is like breaking through like Fred's disassociation into Pete. I thought that was a really cool scene, and also shows like kind of the beginnings of how the beginnings of Fred's distrust could come to be.
Mhm. Well, and also that seems really important, right? Because it plays into like the I guess you could say it's like a little bit closer to reality, where like he goes to the Lost Highway. Because like first of all, it doesn't make sense that he would be in like Andy's house and there'd be like numbers on the doors. Like that doesn't really make sense. But like as you said, it's sort of like foreshadowing slash. It's like him like
Yeah,
remembering a memory kind of thing of like being in a Lost Highway where we're presuming on like the level that's like closest to reality, he like somehow found that his wife was going there with Dick Laurent and like slept in the room across the hall and then went in to kill Dick Laurent, which we're assuming like that like probably like actually happened, like a level
yeah.
closest to reality where he actually kidnapped him and threw him in his car and killed him. Uh,
This might be a stretch, but I
yeah.
think this is a scene of him seeing this actually, but the way he saw this was different. I think this might be too much of a stretch, perhaps, but I think he hired literally a private eye, like you do in extramarital affairs sometimes with people, and especially in like noir films. They hire a PI. The PI go digs up some dirt, some pictures, some videos specifically of their extramarital affairs, and then he's seen it, and that's why he doesn't like tapes
Oh.
because he's trying to deny the fact that she's cheating on him.
I
And I
see.
think
Although it's sort of like a weird thing here that like he doesn't really need someone to gather or take pictures of her
yeah,
sleeping
yeah,
on
yeah.
men,
That's
considering
the
she's like a
interesting
porn
part. He
actress,
also
right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, porn has to be done with a camera. He doesn't like cameras. I wonder why. But like,
yeah, right.
that's why when the mystery man when he first
But really quick,
or I guess not first, but when he meets him at the party with Andy still alive, he the mystery man says,
mhm.
"You invited me to your home. By getting a PI to get cameras and pictures and videos of your wife's extramarital affair, and you brought this distrust in your relationship on your own. You invited me, the darkness."
Yeah, sure, that's pretty strong. Yeah, I like that interpretation. I said earlier because I'm still stuck on that. What's like the last point you made right before? Quite understood it.
Wait, me or Derek?
You. What's the last point you made right before Derek's point?
Oh, wait, about like the hotel room and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when he goes, okay, so the on the level where he's Pete and he's in Andy's house and he goes
Mhm.
upstairs and he sees like numbers on the hallway, right? Like on every room, which like doesn't really make sense for like a private residence. And then we see that like he opens up a different window or like a different door, and like in there his wife is having sex with somebody else, right? And this is because like even though we haven't seen it yet, he's remembering when he was Fred and he went to the Lost Highway Hotel, and because he suspected his wife was cheating on him and went there basically to catch his wife in the act. And then after she, because we see this like actually happen, she like says she like kisses Dick Laurent goodbye and leaves, and then he goes in there and then knocks Dick Laurent out and puts him in his trunk and drives him out to the desert. So like my point is that like it's basically foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing a scene that's going to come later in the sequence of the movie, but it's a memory that Pete/Fred is having of a
Wait,
moment that
what's the scene?
actually
I guess.
happened in
So what's the
reality.
scene you're talking about that it's foreshadowing? I guess this is what I don't
It's
understand.
He literally
foreshadowing the
does that,
scene where
like towards the end.
he literally does that, where Fred goes, he drives to the Lost Highway Hotel, and we see him go up to a room, and then he checks into like room number 25, and he looks over his shoulder at room number 26, and then it cuts away to inside room number 26 where, uh, yeah, where Renee is like kissing Dick Laurent goodbye, and she leaves, and then shortly after, Fred goes in there and grabs Dick.
Okay, I guess I was confused because I thought that's what you meant. Was the wait? So
When
what's the
Pete
original
is
scene you're
still
talking
the
about? When
one that
he
we're that the identity in play, and he goes into seemingly he goes up the stairs in the like mansion, and he turns up in the lost.
okay, so like
Yes.
right after he kills Andy,
Yes.
I had sorry because I wasn't looking at these theories. I was figured you guys
Oh
would,
no,
and
I'm.
I would.
This is just what
Yeah,
we've been like theorizing. Yeah.
speculating. Okay. Yeah, I haven't thought too well, I guess, in these aspects.
Also, the scene.
Yeah.
Oh
Wait,
yeah.
wait, wait, so stop. Because I have my own thought later, just kind of thought up right now. So, Dick Laurent, right? Do we think that he actually
Yeah.
to the desert or whatever and killed him?
Yes.
Because you said this, because we kind of identified the desert as his mind. Really, he kills him. Like, obviously, Dick Laurent has to be dead. We agree on that, obviously. But what I wonder is, we see him with this gun, um, and it is a bit of an unusual move to not kill him right
Hmm.
there, you know,
Wait, kill him right where?
in the hotel.
Well, I mean, that seems fairly logical. Like, you don't want to kill somebody in a hotel. It's like if you're going to drive them out to the desert, they'd be less likely to be found.
I guess so, but then like, it
Maybe the
feels like this
desert
like
has be maybe his mind is symbolized as the desert because of that particularly important traumatic event
Oh,
that happened there.
that makes sense actually. Yeah, that's dope. So
okay.
And it's possible that like this cabin is like actually a real place, and that we're only and like because this traumatic event has happened at this cabin, it sort of becomes the locus for all of his
mhm.
other psychological
That's why we don't see like
misadventures.
I think this lines up because Fred 2 doesn't like just like morph like Fred 1 does. He just stands up from going being Pete to being Fred. So that's like
Yeah.
and that's when Alice disappears in the cabin. It goes into his mind and he comes up in reality from the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, well, well, Alice becomes Renee slash disappears at the same time that Pete becomes
Yeah.
Fred, right? Or like pretty much at the same time. Yeah. So
So I'm gonna go
Uh
with
huh.
an even crazier theory here. It's gonna be kind of weird, but so what we know for sure is that he is dead out randomly in the desert, right? Because we see this like after the police scene, right? We see like his body bloody, the Dick Durant's body bloody in the desert,
Yeah.
correct? And I think that this whole like Dick Laurent getting him in the car and then the two fight in the deserts and he stabs him. It all seems like doing sort of brother's thing where like Laurent, right? You know, he literally like physically beats him in combat. And it's so weird to have this gun that's never really used. You know what I mean? Like literally a smoking gun that stays on fire. What if Dick Laurent? What if he just shot him there and took him out to the desert? You know, and maybe like the desert itself is still like maybe going on what Caleb's saying with the desert's like this traumatic thing. Maybe it's also just this one last thing of actually taking one on one. Right? He had to basically shoot him, sneak up on him. Right? Because we did sneak up on him. We see him sneak up on him, and then you think I thought he was gonna shoot him right there,
Mhm.
and he doesn't. You know what I mean? Last act of like he couldn't even beat this guy in death. You know, so weird that he gets this. That we're supposed to believe that in real life he got this epic moment where he stares at him and he goes, "You too," or whatever he says, you know, and he stabs him one more time, and he just shot him. You know, and took him out to the desert and threw him away. It's kind of this like last
Yeah.
form
He
of
likes to
denial.
remember things
Is
as
what
he
the desert
remembers
is.
things,
You
not
know.
as they are.
So I have a quick interjection since we're on this like point in the movie. So at this point, the Darkness Man, like shows Dick Laurent in his like dying
Yes.
moments the camera, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then that camera is like all the porn
And also
videos of Renee,
potentially,
right?
the PI investigation, like the symbol of it and the symbol of truth, I suppose. Video
But what's
in
the symbol
general,
of truth?
reality.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So this is sort of like him providing an explanation for like why he's killing Dick because he's like, I this is my evidence. I caught you with my wife.
Yes, but once again, if going through my theory, my little mini theory, I don't think you know. But I think that's how he wants to remember is he gave him this great explanation and he got to kill him right there, but probably just, shot him
Hmm.
and died and he threw him into that desert.
Maybe, but you like, what is your justification? Like, why didn't he take him out there and stab him?
Well, I mean, first thing, right? Like, it feels, so convenient, right? That, like, this guy who we're all agreeing throughout 99% of this movie, inferior as a man to Dick Laurent, you know what I mean? Sudden gets this moment where he gets to, for lack of a better word.
Well, you're kind of cutting out. Could you repeat what you said?
First part, it just feels weird that there's just a lot of weird stuff going on. Like the movie is gosh, sorry, the names. Is Fred like the superior man to Dick Laurent, right? We agree the whole time Dick Laurent is like power over Fred, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he's an old man. It's not like it's that unreasonable that he would be able to physically overpower him.
Such an epic way that's like so unlike anything Fred does at any other point, right? We agree that he pretty much like spontaneously kills his wife, and all this seems to be done like such like a passive person to get this epic moment. And of course the gun, right? Why do this with the gun? Why
Well,
so much on it too, Where she tells him to hold the gun and he
Yeah, but
puts it in
that's
his
Pete.
pocket.
That's Pete. It's a little different. It's like a different level of reality.
Sure, but what does the gun represent there? I mean, we
Well,
so much
because
focus on the gun for it not to come
no,
anything up it.
because he doesn't he bludgeon Andy just like he bludgeons Dick.
oh yeah, that is true. Yeah,
So she gives him a gun, but like, he doesn't use that case. Like he doesn't use that on Andy
Yeah.
either.
that's true.
So
Yeah,
here's what I want to know: in the like on the lowest, most like realistic level of like this plot, which comes first? Does he murder his wife and then kill Dick Laurent, or does he kill Dick
He
Laurent
kills Dick Laurent and then his wife.
his
I think
wife?
that's I think when he is in the jail and he like does the morph reconstruction cabin thing, I think that's like the flipping to the other side of the Mobius strip. Like if we're gonna use the Mobius strip as like a representation of how this movie like narratively works. So I think that is that moment. So I think technically it's
Yeah.
like if you want to look at it that way, it's Dick Laurent is dead and he's dead, and then Renee is dead. That's why there's that tension there because Fred
Yeah.
knows he's dead and that his wife's a cheater. He's still kind of like, I don't like that.
so at the end when he goes to the house and says Dick Laurent is
That's
dead, what's happening there?
himself confronting himself that does not want to know that.
Wait, so but that has to be a literal moment though, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
I
Because
think
the
that's a
cops
little.
chase after him.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, it
literal
happens in-
moment.
Well,
that's okay. So that's like Fred 2 telling Fred 1 that yo, this is reality. Dick Laurent is dead. Renee's a cheater, and then that's why Dick Laurent or Fred 2 goes on the Lost Highway and starts morphing at the end of it.
Yeah, I think that's like what's important to keep in mind is that like Fred 2 is like the reconstructed version of Fred 1, and like they're all just different mental states of Fred, but they are also physically different human beings at the same time. Does that make sense? Like even
Kind
though
of.
like Fred 2 telling Fred 1 that Dick Laurent is dead is like symbolically him like confronting himself, but it also literally happens that there's a man at the door telling another man inside the house that another guy's dead. Like it's both symbolic
I don't know if
and
it's too much of a stretch, but
When does
Sheila tells Pete that he's changed. I think Pete is a different person, and he becomes Fred, and Pete is Fred too. This might be too much of a stretch, so that's how I think logically you could imagine that there's technically two Freds. So
Wait, explain that again. Like your point is that like
Yeah.
Pete is like an actual
yeah,
person who
because
had an existence
that's why it's
prior to this.
important that he forgets and doesn't remember what happened the other night, because he's disassociated literally and like forgotten things, but he's also literally changing into another person. That's why it's important that he has that like I think that malformation on his head, because that's like a signal that he's, and as it decreases, that's a sign that he's like, you know, becoming a different identity. Before.
Ooh, also, as an aside, I think that those bruises on his head they match up quite a lot with the bludgeon spot on Andy's head when he hits him with like the
Yeah,
whatever
that
candlestick
actually
type
looks
thing.
really like similar. Yeah, it's just like on the other side. Yeah, that's cool.
this movie's weird. Wait,
Yeah.
so I guess I'm sort of confused. When does Pete turn to Fred
At the
2?
at the cabin the second time.
At the
That was
cabin.
it.
But the cabin doesn't exist.
Well, he not
But it does. It's the place where he kills Dick.
yeah.
It exists
I think,
and it's in his mind.
Well, the second time we don't really like see him at it, but we see him. Well, we see him at it, but we see him like in the shot that he turns into Pete or from Pete to Fred. We don't see him; he's still on the ground, and we just see Alice walk into the cabin. So you could see that as like the in the mind moment, he walks into the like cabin, and once he stands up, that's like real.
Also, I want to mention that as a kind of counterpoint to your claim that like him murdering him with the knife is like so badass or whatever. If you remember, when he opens up the trunk, Dick Laurent like jumps out and overpowers him for like quite a protracted period of time. In an interesting way, reflects like the sex scene between Pete and Alice when she's like riding him in the sand. Like Dick Laurent is also like basically sitting on his lap
Yeah.
over him in the sand and like basically beating him up. And then he's only able to overpower him when the mysterious man, the darkness, or his internal insecurities or whatever, hands him the knife. So he's basically being driven by the darkness inside of him to do this.
And it's only through the darkness where he can feel empowered, right? Where with
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I
how
can
does
agree with
that
that.
end, right? Where Allison ends with her
Yeah,
saying something like,
I was
"You
gonna
can
mention
never
that because
have me."
but that's like Alice saying that. Obviously, the second imagined identity that he's trying to disassociate, saying that to Pete, representing Pete's desire for her, but also she's saying that again to Fred, signifying his distrust of Renee and that he'll never actually have her as his wife and like as a committed person to person level.
I also thought that that was like maybe like just like the phrasing implies like a sense of ownership, right? Like she's like a free woman who's gonna like go and do whatever she wants, and he's never going to have her as like because if you think about like how Alice is like before the realities start to collapse, it's like this ideal woman who's like amazingly sexy and wants to be with him more than anybody else, and like it's just like a perfect relationship, right? Which is kind of like a very like possessive, like unrealistic dreamlike version of what a woman can be like. And she's basically when the realities collapse, she says that you'll never have me by basically like reasserting her own personhood and like not being just a part of Pete's ego
Destroying
or
the
Fred's
Alice
ego.
personality.
Like yeah, like you'll never have me. Like I'm my own person. I'm not a part of your mind,
Mm-hmm.
a part of your property kind of thing.
Then is if we're mirroring that to the scene where they fight in the sand. What Pete's conclusion is that you have to let this darkness come in to like.
Yeah, that's why Pete like as soon as like she gets up and we no longer see Pete, Pete is no longer there. It's Fred version 2 because the darkness is
Mhm.
has come finally for Pete and he's now Fred. He's no longer Pete. He's a changed person.
Yeah, so in a way, like if we try and like straighten this out into like a chronological series, like him grabbing the knife from the darkness guy is like kind of like the first appearance of the darkness guy, right? Like that's when he like invites the darkness in and takes advantage of his power, right? Like he becomes empowered by the darkness to like reassert his masculinity in some sort of way by murdering
Mm-hmm.
the guy that's banging his wife, right? And then so later, like later on slash earlier on, when he's at the party and he says, I don't go where I'm not invited. Like he's received that invitation by
And he can no longer
Fred
take that
taking the
back
knife.
and try to live a normal like husband wife relationship.
Yeah, so that's basically what it is, right? I think that's like the crux of the story is like he finds out like he loves his wife very much, but she's cheating on him. So he kills the guy that's cheating on him with, and then in those like few days in between, he's like unable to like return to a normal lifestyle. And
And
that's why
why
like
he
the
suffers
conversation is so
impotence.
awkward, right? And like he yeah, exactly. And like I don't know exactly whose face it
It's
was and
Mystery
if it's
Man.
supposed to look like somebody
It's
else,
the
but when he's
Mystery
like
Man.
lying in bed with
That's
her,
why I was gonna
is
mention
it
that
Mystery
because
Man?
it's the shadow
Yeah.
is on her face,
So
and then he looks back and it's the Mystery Man. The darkness has
yeah.
already come into his home, into his wife,
Ah,
and his husband relationship.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, and so he's then unable to. It basically doesn't fix his relationship problems, and maybe even makes them because now he's basically haunted by like what he's done in some sort of way. And then so the only way, like at this point, he sees no way out but to kill his wife as well. Dang, we did it, dude! We did it. I thought this movie
Maybe.
was. I
No,
thought
I'm
this movie
telling
was
you, my theory is pretty
indecipherable.
solid. The only I think it's just like
Yeah.
the Pete stuff is kind of weak because it's like a Mobius strip thing. I think, like you said. So I don't know. It's kind of difficult to get that entirely straight.
No, but I feel like this is like pretty much like as close as because I feel like we've now like because like we obviously have some idea of what's going on, but it's told in a very like expressionist, like
Hmm.
emotional based way as opposed to reality way. But I feel like we've pretty much translated this down into like the most reality based way that we could.
Yeah, as much as we can, right? To vote on these
1 second. I have
awards.
some like tidbits that I liked about this movie that was cool, but I did.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. There's like we didn't talk about like literally any of the actual
Yeah,
movie parts of this movie. Like we didn't talk about the cinematography or the acting or any cool shots or like anything. We like just spent our entire our entire a lot of time trying to
yeah,
decipher the narrative, which is fine. But there's a lot to this movie that we didn't talk about. Like this movie is actually like extremely funny too.
yeah. There's a lot. I'm just gonna mention some bullet points and then we can expand on them if we want to. But like at the very beginning, there's the quiet scene where we first like have the first dialogue between him and Renee, and then like it's very quiet that she says, "You can wake me up if you want to," and immediately jarring loud music waking you up. So I thought that was cool, like directorially. It was really fun. Um, Obviously his we already mentioned the shadowed face thing, and then the mystery dude on his face, on her face, and that was really cool. Henry Rollins as a guard. That was great. That was dope. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
god, I love that. And obviously Marilyn Manson and whatnot, and Twiggy, Richard Pryor. Oh my god,
Richard
Richard
Pryor.
Pryor was great.
Oh, also, I don't know
Shout out my
the
boy
Yeah,
Gary Busey as the dad.
Oh yeah, true. And the older
yeah. So I
mechanic
was gonna
who was
mention that.
listening to the weird saxophone music is that's the guy from Eraserhead, and he plays
Oh, I was
the
gonna
old
say
guy on Twin Peaks.
the guy who was playing the jazz music. That music is Fred playing that we see at the beginning, and Pete's
Yeah,
and
right.
that's
And
why Pete doesn't like
that's why
it.
he doesn't like it.
He's like, I don't like that, and he's like, well, I like it. Oh, I don't.
Yeah. Oh man, this is such a good movie. We're not gonna get to talk about
Also,
so many great parts of this movie, but like the whole scene when he's like on like the Dick has like the road rage
yeah.
thing is just so absurd because like at this point in the movie you think like okay this like Dick Laurent guy is some sort of gangster or some real high flying guy. He's gonna get out of this car and he's gonna be like, do you know who I am? I'm Dick Laurent. You don't mess with me. I'm the kingpin. And like you think that's what it's gonna be because that's what you set up to be by like cliche, but then he gets out and goes on this like spiel about like road safety and like, do you know how many car lengths it takes to stop? Like all that stuff is so unexpected and hilarious, and like so this movie has like a lot going on for it. It's like really depressing and scary, but it also has really
Also,
funny parts.
I'm gonna mention this, and I'm gonna mention another thing that might be involved with the theory. I don't know, but Pete in the mirror with the darkness behind him, it reflected in the mirror, and it's just him surrounded by both the mirror darkness and his own darkness behind him, with like drony dark music. Was like, and the show, but this mirror shot shows that the malformation has decreased and disappeared. So I don't know what that has to do with the theory or not, but I think but it's
No, that
definitely
shot
a
was
great
super
shot.
duper
I thought
cool.
it was so good. But also, shots with lips and eyes happen all the time with
Yep.
Renee and Alice in when they're on the phone. For some reason, I don't know why. So it's like the eyes and lips typically are what characterize like emotion, like the voice and eyes. You can see the eyes of the mirror to the soul and all that kind of idea. So it's like he's looking at these like very expressive items of the face, but not with the actual context of the face and the actual emotion of the body and whatnot.
I feel like that's almost a motif though. Like I've seen that like shot a lot. Like when a woman, especially like a sexy woman, is talking on the phone and we like just see her lips. Like that's definitely like a trope.
No, it's like seduction is what it is, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
but
what
it
what
comes up a
Yeah,
lot in
and the
like
fact that he
noir,
does
neo
that, the
noir.
first time he does that is
Crazy
when she's
movie.
on the phone terrified, and the second time when she's talking to Pete terrified, said she's going to get killed by Mr. Eddie.
Mhm.
So the fact
True.
that he's using this seduction cliche to have Renee seduce the police to listen to her and seduce Pete to listen to her about the problem of Dick Laurent is
Oh god, that's so weird. I didn't even think about the fact that she seduces the detectives to come over.
like the idea of that is so weird.
It also it's also like a really cool point that like in his like Pete narrative, like Dick Laurent is like coming to kill them and coming to kill her because then he sets himself up as like the savior,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I'm saving you from this guy by killing him, right? Oh man.
Convenience.
Um, so like the red
Ooh.
curtains in their bedroom reminded me are pretty much like directly like the red curtains from Twin Peaks. Definitely a Lynch motif.
Uh,
I love the casting on Andy. Like he
yeah.
was like such a slimy character
Oh yeah, that
with his
guy's
like
the worst.
shitty little mustache. Oh,
Yeah.
that's like the most
Yeah.
punchable face I've ever seen in my life. Oh, there's a tattoo on Fred's hand. I don't know what it is. I didn't write down what it was, but I think it was like a moon with a star or something like that.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up real quick.
Might be something to look into. Yeah.
Tattoo, Lost Highway. Let me see. Yeah. Oh,
Also, this
it's a
movie
half
has like
moon
a
with
ton of sex.
dot in the middle.
Yeah. So I don't know what that symbolizes, but maybe it means has some sort of
Yeah,
meaning.
it's that's that is definitely something. That's a Hindu symbol.
Oh yeah. And Lynch is really into like Eastern
And
type stuff.
Hinduism has the idea of samsara, so the idea of like
What's that?
circuitous life and death.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I like that there was like probably like 5 or 6 different sex scenes in this movie, but they all like are done in a really different way that conveys like a completely
Oh
different
yeah,
emotional palette to what's going on. Like from like really grim and depressing and like almost scary, like in the first one, to like almost like validating and like the high school innocence or like the young innocence or whatever with Sheila, and then the final one or like the maybe not quite final one but almost
yeah.
final one when they're like in the desert has like this like insane
And the
aesthetic to
desperation of
it.
the second one with Sheila, the like kind of it's like almost like anger
Hmm.
at like I kind of like the situation or just like I don't know, almost weird like I don't know self mutilation. It was kind of weird,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Oh, he's into that self-mutilation, that
But
Lynch.
yeah, that tattoo or whatever, that's dope. Oh my god, I didn't even notice that. So like,
I also like what they did with music a lot too to like change the emotional vibe because they would almost have like 2 songs playing simultaneously. Like there would be like one song, like say we're going from like happy to sad, they would have like a happy song playing, and then like they would start playing a sad song, but they like wouldn't turn off the happy song. They would like both be playing during the same time, and there'd be like this weird clashing for a long time before they finally fade out the first song. And they did that a lot, which definitely is like a kind of disorienting, grating effect.
but yeah, the idea of samsara is wandering within the world, within like as in like the cyclical change of life and like rebirth, and nirvana is the liberation from it.
Hmm.
So Dick is
Hmm.
wandering, or not Dick, but Fred is wandering with, and he has yet to reach nirvana.
Yeah, it's almost like a Groundhog Day thing, right? Like he's like stuck in this like loop of reality of like this traumatic experience basically, and like he just kind of has to relive it over and over again, but he doesn't relive at the same time each time. He like kind of wanders through this inner world, I
Oh, I forgot
guess.
about the out of focus thing happened with Pete like way earlier. Like when Sheila tells the dad to tell him, he's like, it goes out of focus like multiple times, and it also does it before when the dad's like, we don't talk about that night. And it's like he's like rejecting the fact that Pete is rejecting the fact that the other night. What's the other night? The mystery man being invited into Fred's life and
Mhm.
all that darkness and stuff. I didn't
Hmm.
even realize that until I reread my notes. Oh, the shot of the mice of Pete on the motorcycle, but morphing into the wings of the goose headboard in the hotel that he's with Alice was a really cool shot.
Oh.
Also, Alice holds a gun in the Andy scene at Pete, asking him if he trusts her. That's like
Yeah.
something I wrote that down, but I couldn't put my finger on like what was up with that.
I guess it just like indicates this like tension, right? Or like this like mistrust where like you're not sure which side she's actually on and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. Also, oh, we talked about cool shots, but did we mention how cool the lighting was? Like the sex scene in the desert, like Alice and Pete. That was dope.
I guess. Oh, come on. No, I that scene was. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like all these musical numbers on Lynch's part. They just feel so like
Well, you're
unnecessary, and I
anti-music,
understand
Matt.
like he's
So
trying to like have this like. No, I'm not. What am I even
you said you
anti-music?
don't like music all that much, like a long time ago, and you said you didn't really need music in your life.
Like I guess like anti like I don't like music. I just like don't listen to as much music as most people. But like it's not that like not in films. It's like not a thing. I just feel like in this part it really takes you out of it. You know, it's like you're watching this
Really,
movie and
I
it's
was the
like
reverse for sure. I thought it
oh
was
he's like
super. I thought it was super aesthetic, especially
oh
when he was. It was interesting because it starts with very simple, like droney, minimalist ambient music with like Fred and stuff, and it even continues with Pete during like the darkness scene in the mirror. But then as it like Pete is like I guess deconstructing kind of into Fred version 2, it starts getting into industrial Marilyn Manson, Ramstein, like very almost abrasive music. As him changing identity is probably fairly abrasive for him.
I just felt like I don't know. All it really did serve was like make the movie longer, which I just didn't think was necessary. I feel like they could have in the same sex scene. Like almost 2 minutes of the film on
What
this
the
scene.
sex scene
It
in the
just felt
desert?
unnecessary. Long. It's
Yeah, it was
long.
just
It's
aesthetic.
aesthetic, dude. The music
So
going on, oof.
like the
Like
movie
that.
is
It's
like
like that.
not really a movie about aesthetics, right? It's a movie about like
What?
aesthetic, and not in the same manner. Like
I
it ultimately,
disagree. I
it's
disagree
a movie
completely.
predicated on aesthetics,
Well,
but
it's
it's
not
not about
about
aesthetics. How's it
aesthetics,
about
but
aesthetics,
it's
Caleb?
like I don't know.
Well, because everything is being relayed to you like
Yeah,
aesthetically rather than
that's actually
logically.
a good point.
Guess but how is what is this? Sure. So
That's
what is this
him,
telling you then?
uh,
Bring to you.
wrestling with the idea. If we're talking about desert as the mine, or the cabin at least, in the mine, him wrestling with that idea.
I just feel like spending 2 minutes
Well, it's like
on
the
any.
last goodbye between his
Yeah, and that's
fantasy and
why
what his
immediately
life
after
is.
she says, "You'll never have me."
Since I don't understand why it has to be this 2 minute musical number, and why can't it just be like
I don't know, build up.
the music? It overtakes everything. You know what I mean? It's so all encompassing in any given scene. I mean, that's like criticism for a lot of movies, right? Like,
But I don't know. I think it was effective. I guess it's a subjective experience ultimately, but I thought it enhanced. Wait, are we talking about the scene in general or the music
some of the
in the
music,
scene?
yeah.
I thought
Yeah,
I don't know, I thought it enhanced it.
I think you could have made that music 2 times or 3 times quieter, 2 times shorter, and like it would have been like just as efficient or just as good. And like,
But then what are you supposed to have like during the rest of the time? Silence?
no, make the scene like I think that like guess make that sex scene
So we're
like
talking about the scene. Then you're not talking about the music. You're talking about the scene in general.
I'm talking about making the music quieter,
Okay.
pushing the scene or the sex. It's just into the scene because the scene's like more than that, and make the sex half as short. There's so much for it. It's so like it didn't feel nearly as powerful for me as everything else because so at that point you're just so concerned with the narrative. I was so hooked on like what's gonna happen, that like it felt something I had to get out of the way. It shouldn't be
Mhm.
feel that way because it's something that he is like, definitely not getting out of the way. Like as you guys are saying, it should be this moment that he's cherishing. But
No, but it's
I
like
don't know.
it's a moment that's going on too long because he's holding on to it, right? Like he knows where like this is not at this point. Like they're like the identities have begun to merge enough that like he knows that he's not in real. He knows that he's in
This is associative
some
state.
sort of unreal place. Exactly, right? So, but he's like enjoying this like last moment with his fantasy, like before he has to go become Fred too, right? So he's like, it almost makes sense that it drags on, right? Because he's like desperately clinging to it, and desperately holding on for like this one last moment before he has to come crashing back to reality.
All things make sense when they drag on, huh? When Lynch does something that's like objectively like, a no-no, at least conventionally speaking, right? Shut up, Tom. Conventionally speaking, then it makes sense. I don't think it needs. I think you can have that moment, Caleb, and it be shorter and not take you out
But
of the movie. Like
I
when
think
music comes
whether or not
blasting through
it's
speakers,
picking you out of
right?
the
Like
movie is probably subjective. At least in my experience, that definitely put me in the movie.
Yeah, I found that
I
scene
mean,
like the
I feel
music,
like
especially, I found it transportive.
conventionally speaking, if there's nothing else to look at and you are blasting music, that is taking you out of the movie, right? Like, man, musicals, what they have to do, that's why musicals, they have to have like these big numbers and all these dancing because music itself is meant to heighten, not to be the focus. And when you're making music the focus, it shows like this weird thing
I
that
don't
like
think that.
isn't.
I think that your argument
The
I didn't
requires
find the
that the
music the
music
focus though.
takes us out of the film.
So
Yeah, I didn't
what's
think
the
that.
what's
I
the
didn't
focus?
even think the focus is the sex scene, the titties.
There's nothing there. They just feel so empty, like we're saying.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. It is supposed to be empty because it's a hollow
I understand that, but
fantasy.
Caleb, yes, but Caleb, I understand that this is the point, but that does not mean it is effective, right? Because it takes you out, right? Yes, in this ideal world, you would be like, you would be paying perfect attention and you would like feel this emptiness, but because of this music that's also playing
I
over
think
it,
whether or
you're no
not it
longer
takes
feeling
you out
emptiness. You're
is
just
the
like
point.
bored.
It's subjective.
Yes, but we're talking about. Okay, we're trying to like,
Yeah, but I don't think it took me out. And also, like the music itself being the way that it is, like the music has qualities that also makes it seem empty, right? So it's like a solitary female vocalist with like a hell of a lot of reverb. And what this does is it makes it sound like there's one small person singing in a gigantic room, which lends itself to the emptiness. So it's actually not even that loud. There's just a lot of reverb on it.
okay, well, whether or not it is actually loud, it feels loud, right?
Well, yeah, but the
And
point is that like it's the reverb that makes it feel empty. So it's not the music itself has qualities that lend to the emptiness.
I guess I'll come into this is all obviously subjective. I want to clarify this point because I interrupted. It's all obviously subjective, but we're talking like everything we talk about is subjective, right? So we've got to like from theory we can, you know, theory we can, and then go on from that. I think what you were saying, Caleb, but like I guess I feel like I Commissioner stance would say that that is not the effect that would have, right? Like, yes, if that is the case, and there's like something dynamic happening in front of you that is like making you watch the film, making you invest in the movie, investing in the music, and that's kind of seeping into your subconscious, etc. But what's happening here is that's something you want to look away from convention, right? You don't want to, especially these two characters at this point in the movie. Like, you don't want to be seeing it, so you're looking away, and the music really to draw you back in, which it really doesn't. It kind of just like shouts at you and makes you want to look away more.
Interesting. That's definitely not how I felt.
Likewise, I definitely wanted to look at what was going on.
Okay.
I mean, you could. I think like you could make a claim that it would be more enjoyable to watch, like if it were shorter. I can definitely see that. But like the point, like it definitely there's a basis in the narrative of the movie for why it might go on longer than desirable, because he is wanting it to go on for longer, right?
You know, but
He's
your
trying to
basis
draw
is
it out.
based off the fact that like will anyone be able to like be interested in the scene for that long, or like be able to like invest in the scene for that long? But the fact of the matter is they're showing the same woman naked who we've seen naked like 7 times. It's nothing different about how we see her naked. It's just more like goddessy looking, right? Like a bit more subjectified in that sort of manner. But like, at the end of the day, like sex in movies is
I mean, you're thinking about it from like an audience's point of view, as opposed to
yes,
like a
as I am the audience.
Yeah, but I'm
Are you
saying
guys
like
not looking at it
you
from the
can
audience
you
point of
can
view?
think. No, I mean we're thinking about it from what makes sense in terms of like what the director's trying to do with the narrative.
Yes, but we are trying to watch the movie. Like the director should be like, who is the director making the movie for himself? If
I
so,
know,
we should just like award Kubrick #1 right now, or Tarkovsky. They can be the
but
final two.
I mean not just that, but like in trying to advance the narrative and have it be like honest to what would actually be happening, like it makes sense that this would be a long scene, right? Like it might not be
No, it
fun
makes
to
it makes
watch,
sense that
but
it is
it
a
makes sense that
But
it's a long scene.
ultimately, I think it is fun
it's
to
not
see,
funness. We're talking about
because in the context of the film, this makes
Caleb.
sense, and ultimately, it's cinematographically done well. The music is.
It's corny. The shot's so corny. I mean, it's done, but I wouldn't say it's like done like anything particularly interesting about it. Please, like enlighten me, because it's literally just upshots of her hair
I think you're
waving back and these sorts of
generalizing it a little
things.
bit too much.
And
There's,
Caleb, we're talking about like enjoyment versus like not enjoyment. It's about like it's okay not enjoy something in a movie, but then you shouldn't be trying to suppress emotion on someone while they're not enjoying it, right? Like the emotion you should be trying to suppress is like not enjoying something. Then they're like, they're not going to like or other emotion you're giving them at the time, right? What enjoyment does for a movie, and why people always go to it, is because it's really easy to like throw another action, right? That's why people cry at the end of these Marvel movies. All the actions got them invested, then these tragic deaths happen, like, oh, sad, 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 sad.
Hmm.
It's like supposed to be something you just like avert your eyes from. It's very bizarre, as you're saying, to like also try to put this emptiness in it, especially when there's literally one like I feel like this is the point you should be really trying to fight is like either a the music is more hooking than it seems, or the shots more hooking than it seems.
Like the shots or the music is more what than it seems. Sorry.
Than it seems, like it's more intriguing than it seems, more captivating. But there's nothing else making you look. There's no narrative base there. I guess there's a slight narrative base from everything else building up to it, but at this moment, I'm like, okay, I'll just wait till the narrative continues. It's there.
I suppose I see what you're saying, but like you can't deny that there is a for everything that you're saying about this scene, there's like a reason why it would be that way. Like in the narrative of the story, like it makes sense why he would want to have this fantasy,
Yes,
and it
I
makes
think
sense
you could say
why he
that.
would want it to go on for a long time, and it would make sense why it would have this subjective feeling of being hollow.
I think you could say this about every single film we've watched. You couldn't say this about. So like, it's about the
Mm,
what was that Lang movie, Tiger Etched Apart? Probably could say it about that. But like, some of the movies rated very low will strike. You could. There's a reason Eisenstein does everything. I think you're an idiot if you think that like everything is not like very carefully done. It's about whether you like that carefully done. And I'm saying I think like the reason I don't like Eisenstein stuff for the same reason I don't like this is because it just doesn't. It's from like a captivating the audience standpoint. There's a lot of backwards logic going on there.
hmm. I think I understand your point now, but I still disagree that I personally did not find it boring.
Okay, I think that's as far as this conversation can be carried. So we ready
uh,
to start voting?
I don't think we
Yes.
mentioned that the mystery man also pulls out a camera on Fred immediately after Alice goes into the cabin. So he so he pulls out
Yeah,
a
true,
camera
correct.
on him, confronting him with the truth of Renee is not a good loyal wife, and then
Was it that,
or
or was
that
that Renee
also
doesn't
that
love him?
Renee
Or like
doesn't is not a good
whatever
loyal
that is.
wife and does not love him and is cheating on him and is a porn actor who is videotaped with a camera, and thereby forces him to confront that reality and then asks him who what's your name, are you Pete or are you Fred? Pete being, the disassociative state that is rejecting this idea, or Fred, version 2, who's going to accept this and move on with this.
Okay, well, you guys actually we each got in a 5-minute fight, and then Derek inadvertently reveals like why this scene's actually is actually strong. So here, Derek? What is the guy
I think
doing?
so.
He's filming them doing what? So he's now a porn star. He's now
Yeah.
like culpable of everything, right? And like the music is supposed to be very porny, right? Which is why I say it's corny and cheesy.
Wait,
And
I don't think it was porny. It was like, because isn't it like ethereal singing? I've never heard ethereal like.
sure, I guess I don't like
Oh.
music, but at least like
Yeah, the shot are
like the
definitely
shots
very
themselves are
90s,
very porny,
early
but like
2000s porn.
but like the music itself is like I guess which is how he's seeing it is right this very like magic moment, and she's just like should just become another porn scene, and that's why it's like
Yeah,
you can
you can
never
never have me.
have me, you know.
Yeah, I do think that scene, or a lot of this in general, is supposed to be like a commentary on porn. How like she's sort of viewed as being like degraded or something by being a porn actress, but yet like we're seeing them in a lot of scenes, which is basically making this film somewhat pornographic in nature.
Yeah,
Like by making that scene so long and it being basically making it a lot about the woman's attractiveness and like we kind of want to see her being on screen naked because she's hot. It like makes her a porn star on
And
like
then we
multiple
see the level
levels.
of
and
yeah, and then
also
we
she's literally
yeah,
getting filmed. Yeah, they're
then
literally
we
getting filmed. It's literally a porn scene.
Wait, no,
well
no
yeah,
one's no
he
one's filming that
the
in that
mystery
scene.
man who's shown to be holding a camera.
Yeah, she literally goes in and it cuts the mystery man, and he's holding a camera. Like, what else is he filming?
I suppose you
Is
could
he
say
filming
maybe
her
he's not
walking in?
literally filming it, but at least in the sense but in the
Well,
sense of like
okay, that's fair.
narratively at least is that
That's the point. Yeah.
he's become a porn star by interacting in this scenario in this context of how it's shot and whatnot, etc.
I see it.
Yeah,
And the man's
yeah.
filming it. Like, that's the pun, I think. Okay. Also, really quick, the mystery man to have that voice, I was so thrown back. Those guys in
Also,
Game of Thrones, like when Daenerys goes to like the spa with like all the I don't remember what it's called, but the guys who like take her dragons for a bit, you know, like the
Oh
really
yeah, yeah,
creepy
yeah.
looking, like him to basically have that exact
Sons of the
voice, like
Harpy.
hello, and he has like
I think Sons of the Harpies
is that
or
what they're
something.
called? No, 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 no. I'm talking about like the old like magic dudes. When she is about to marry
Yeah,
that
Sons
like
of the
that
Harpy.
really
Yeah.
rich black guy. Okay, yeah, and uh, the mystery man have a voice like that, but instead he has like this like southern accent. Really threw me off. Like, how are you, buddy? Something not really southern, but you got me. Anyways, okay.
Favorite
Quote.
quote? All right. Let's
Favorite quote.
see. Oh, in Germany Year Zero, at the very beginning, the old lady's like, "I'm tired of it all." The old lady tells her, "Then jump in that grave that they're digging." I thought that kecked me from the start.
Monologue about the about tailgating.
oh yeah.
Caleb.
Mine was the I don't like cameras because I like to remember things my own way because it's
Sure.
delivered well and it also is just sort of provides the key of the whole movie.
Okay, so favorite scene.
The 2 minute long sex scene in the desert.
Get out of here.
I'll say the scene in Germany Year Zero when they're playing the Hitler speech over the record
Yeah, it's
player
mine
and
too.
panning over the ruins.
Ominous.
I think either the scene where Pete is in the darkness that I've mentioned, with like the mirror and everything, that was just like, thematically interesting and just really visually like engaging. That or the last shot of Fred going down the lost highway, morphing and just like all those like quick shots of like morphing and malformation and all that stuff was just very I don't know.
I thought that scene was so corny too, but
I
I'm
thought
glad
okay,
you
yeah,
liked it.
I actually want to talk about that because I thought the ending of this movie was Lost Highway was really weak. I thought that I did not like that scene at
Yeah,
all.
I thought it
I,
was
I,
really
I
corny.
agree that like that visual technique is really effective, like when we see the
Yeah.
dismembered body and stuff on the video camera, and like him like sitting near like the beheaded corpse and like freaking out and waving side to side. I thought it was effective there, but like in that final scene, I'm with Matt. I found that scene pretty corny.
Especially because, like, of course they're gonna go back to this, like visual motif of like the road and driving down it. It's just
Yeah,
so
and
like
it's like,
predictably set up.
well, yeah, and it's also like they couldn't think of like an actual satisfying ending to the movie, so there's like, I will just have him drive off
Well, I
into the
mean, the
desert.
desert
That'll
is his
work.
mind, right? The Lost
Leaves
Highway
it nice
is
and open-ended.
the road between disassociative states, basically. The way to the cabin. I think
Yeah, that's
thematically
fair.
it's
That's fair.
fairly powerful in that this is like, this is the continuation of the cycle, we already mentioned Samosata and whatnot. This is just the continuous of the wandering, the Lost Highway, wandering.
He's not wandering anymore. Now he's being
Eh,
chased, and it's like this whole different
it's
thing.
the,
Yeah, I
Feels-
agree.
as soon as you're on the
I
Lost
feel kind of
Highway,
confused
you're a
about it.
wanderer. I don't know. I think the iconography, of highway out of LA into the desert is pretty much, desert is like life, the difference between life and death, right? No water, whatnot. This is the continuation of the cycle of life and death.
I don't think it's like
I don't know.
terrible.
I
I just
mean,
feel
it's
kind of
corny in the
to me. Like,
context
of
of the
course, this
movie,
is how you're
but
gonna end
the
it.
fact that it's corny in the context of the movie is kind of, I don't know, powerful in its own sense that we're already very familiar with this, like, symbol.
I just feel like, yeah, he gets in a car, and then what's gonna happen next? We're gonna see this road motif. Which I never thought the road motif was that visually
I like the
appealing,
morphing
anyways. You know what
a
I mean?
lot, though.
Like,
That's
especially
why I picked that one.
this shot of the road. Like, I don't think it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
that interesting, and then like we're going back to it. I just felt a bit weird.
The
Anyways,
shot
okay,
from it with of
but
him
sure.
inside the
Okay,
car, though,
so
and morphing and whatnot is the
yeah,
and the fact that
stronger.
he's on the Lost Highway at the end is thematically what's important.
Okay, so favorite character.
Whoever Richard Pryor's character is in Lost Highway. Nah, that's a cheat. Obviously, everyone's favorite's Richard Pryor. Probably the Mystery Man.
No, that's a good choice.
What do you say, Matt?
He's so creepy.
That's
He's your
the point.
favorite
He's
character.
so
He's so
fucking creepy and terrifying.
Mm.
I'm contractually obliged to vote for Gary Busey any movie he's in. So I'm going Gary Busey.
I guess I liked
Dad, whatever. Yeah,
Renee slash Alice
that's a
because
good
like
one.
she kind of she's basically like playing two different characters, or like they're two different characters bundled into one, but they kind of like morph into the same character. And also like there was this really cool color thing going on where like if you notice Renee is always wearing black and she has dark hair, and then Alice is wearing like that white dress and she has white hair. Pretty cool stuff.
Okay, best performance.
What did you say?
Best performance.
I'm gonna go Mr. Eddie. Dick Laurent.
Damn it, that was
He
mine.
was so fucking yeah,
As
he was
well.
so
We
fucking
all agree,
evil,
Mr. Eddie.
and it's like powerfully,
Yeah, but then he's
he's
not
just
even that
powerfully
evil, which
his
is
the
weird.
character
Yeah,
that he is. It is, I don't know, it's fucking off-putting.
But like he's also like so goofy at the same time. Like, hey, you like pornos, kid?
that said, I don't know. I do like the Mr. Eddie character. I think he was performed well. It wasn't Lynch's strongest. You know what I mean? Because I think of David Lynch like villains, I feel like they're all so like just disgusting and so like revolting. Who I really hate. I feel like I didn't hate Mr. Eddie like
Well,
I
he's
hated some of them.
Yeah, but
in
I
the
don't think he's like
context,
you're supposed to
in
hate
the
him.
context, like
I guess so.
realistically, what has he done other than
Sure, but
yeah,
main character hates him, right? So we should hate him at least at first. I don't think I hated him that much. I don't know.
I found him funny. I found him endearing in a weird way. Like you hate him, like because the main character hates him, but also like he's just so zany with like the road rage speech, and then also like the whole you like Borno's kid thing is funny because like it comes off as like a wacky one liner, but then it also ends up being like a
I mean,
huge
how are you
narrative
even supposed to
point.
hate him because the main character hates him? He's like the main character is set up also as a member of the Darkness. He's basically also a friend of the Mystery Man. Like realistically speaking, Lynch does not present
Yes,
the
but
main character to be like someone you like also like Captain America where you hate like his enemies or something.
That's true, actually. Because I mean, the main character is like literally murdered like three
Yeah.
people, or at least two. So like, the Dick Laurent probably hasn't done anything that bad. He's just a porn
Well, he also
producer.
beat
So
someone. Yeah.
we did like
So he's
stop someone on the side of
obviously
the road
presented as a
and
very
hold a gun
violent
to them.
person, but
But did that
Yeah.
even happen? Because that was with Pete, right? So
yeah,
that's
I
like
think
kind of
that
on like a different level.
I
That's like
think
a slightly
that
more fantasy
literally
level.
happened, but it, I like to
I
think
like
it
to think it
happened.
happened.
But yeah, I think
That
both
scene was actually based
characters
on
are
a true
definitely being
story.
used to thematically, not as to be like not very good guys, and make a comment on both
Yeah,
marriage and porn and respectively and so etc. So I don't think you're supposed
true.
to like root for
No, I guess
either
like a,
character in a real sense. I think you're supposed to be engaged with what they mean.
Hmm.
I guess like the other issue is like I feel like he looks so much, and I would say this is like not that much of an issue, but then I realized this movie came out after Blue Velvet, so I want to say it's an issue. He looks, it like sounds so much like Frank Booth from Blue Velvet, which we'll probably get there when we get there. It really he's no Frank Booth in terms of like spookiness. So I guess that kind of set this like false expectation for me, where I thought he
Well,
was
I
gonna be
mean,
like
if you
this like
think about it
amazing
like
bad guy.
chronologically,
It's kind of
perhaps
just
in like his or his filmography, might be more palatable.
yeah. So the thing that kind of unfortunately affected me, but it's okay. But I still think he was, also performed amazingly, especially like up
Yeah.
talking him. I think he did a really good job. Okay, I go first actually. I feel like I came in here like kind of favoring Lost Highway. And you guys just like circle jerked it so much, and I feel like the whole time I enjoy it. Like when I watch both movies, I enjoyed Germany Year Zero more, but like maybe Lost Highway is like the better movie. But I'm kind of feeling like the exact opposite. Like maybe Lost Highway is like somewhat more intriguing, but I think Germany Year Zero might be the better movie here. So I'm gonna go Germany Year Zero. It got
I'm gonna say
flipped. I
Lost
think it
Highway.
will at least let me
Well,
finish my
continue your
sentence.
sentence,
This kid
Matt.
Caleb.
Well, you're cutting in and out every half
Yeah.
sentence. It's hard to tell.
Okay, well, why don't you guys like mention these
No.
things in Discord?
Oh,
Not
you
2
paused too
hours into
much,
the
so we can't.
podcast.
But it's fine. Just go ahead, Matt. Finish your sentence. We'd like to hear it, please.
Yeah. So like I was saying, see now. Oh yeah, Journey to Zero. I thought it was the stronger movie. I thought that tightly done, and I think I guess I get what you're saying about the acting. The acting still didn't bother me as much as it seemed to bother you guys. But I think also a lot of that was purposely done to kind of like it gives you a very specific emotion. I think it's really evocative of the time. Let's vote for Lost Highway,
Yeah.
Caleb.
I vote for the Lost
I don't
Highway.
know. Matt, you know how I feel about
Derek.
neorealism movies. I've already said that I
Yes.
how you said about that 2 minute scene was like unengaging and off-putting. I felt pretty much how I felt about most of Germany Year Zero. So I'm gonna have to go Lost Highway. I thought it was more interesting directorially, thematically. I thought it was acted better, obviously. So pretty much on every level, I liked Lost Highway more. So have to go with Lost Highway.
Go.
Podcast
David Lynch
history.
only took you guys how many? We're like what, like over 25 votes to finally come with a consensus that I wasn't a part of.
I'm also unofficially counting the last vote as a consensus on our
You
part. because of
Literally
your
can't.
advanced rhetorical technique. That's why I said unofficially, so it's unofficial. I can do whatever I want.
I guess you can. Okay. So David Lynch lost power. Moving on. His next movie will be Eraserhead, which will be fun. So looking at our next round, we have Barry Lyndon, Party de Campaign, An Autumn Afternoon, The Last Laugh, Crimes and Misdemeanors, and whichever one of Scorsese and Mizuguchi's movies
I bet
move
Matt's gonna
on.
vote Mean Streets.
Round? I don't know. I haven't seen the Mizuguchi movie yet. The Mizuguchi movie is Story of the Last Chrysanthemums, and the Scorsese movie is Mean Streets. Matthew Moore, and remember, watch more. On behalf of my host, Caleb Ferguson and Derek Straczynski, have a great night.